Okay, Stephen, welcome. Can you hear us?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, fantastic. Great. So I think we can get started. So welcome, everyone. It's nice to see so many of you here. This webinar is intended to provide a little bit of information about possibilities of studying in Germany. We're a group of university professors and students and people concerned with education in Germany. We're all here in a private capacity, or mostly. So I'm a professor at Stockholm University in Sweden. We have Professor Silberberger from Witten-Herdecke, Professor Molthagen-Schnöring from Berlin, Professor Göddeke from Reutlingen, Klara Jungermann, who's a PhD student in Witten, Stephen Bwete from the Eurasia Institute in Berlin, and Maria Ann Schmidt also from Berlin. And John Gershman is kindly hosting us. He's a professor at NYU in the US. So we're going to try to keep the talking relatively brief. Stephen will start by briefly saying a few words about studying in Germany, and then I'll provide some more detail on that. And then we'll try to get to the question and answer part relatively quickly, so you can all ask your questions. I'm sorry that this format has to be one where you have to write questions rather than being able to ask them, but for the number of participants that we expected, we couldn't actually have a regular Zoom meeting. So let's get started. Stephen, it would be great if you could just tell us a few things about studying in Germany. So over to you.
Thank you so much, Johannes. Thank you so much, everyone on the panelists, for providing your expertise and your support. We do understand that it's a very difficult time for many of the participants who are joining us today. And that's why we are here, to see how we can make your lives a bit easier. So today I would like to talk briefly about the pathway to Germany. Under normal circumstances, how would we be able to help students come to Germany? I will share my screen, if you wouldn't mind, briefly. Confirm if you can see my screen. So my name is Stephen Bwete, and I work with the Eurasia Institute in Berlin. The Eurasia Institute is a university pathway provider. Basically, what we do is to prepare students to study abroad, and particularly to study in Germany. We do offer all kinds of support that are relevant for students to be able to study in a foreign country, but the most important is the academic advisory service. This is very important because everyone who comes to Germany has to go through the certain bureaucracy, which is very complicated, especially if you don't speak and understand the language of the country. And the second part of our services, or what we provide in terms of support, is the examination that we do provide all university required exams. Say, for example, the test staff or the tech. And then also we help students who need test us, for those who are applying for medicine, to improve their grades and so on. But very important is also that we have been doing this for the last now close to 30 years. And we do have a very good understanding of the various education systems across the globe. I'm particularly very much focused and interested in Africa and Latin America, and that's why I came on board on this. Very much important also is the integration part, because for anyone who comes to Germany, you realize that it's not very easy to find accommodation, especially if you're in a huge city. How to register yourself with the local town hall is not very easy for everyone, or getting insurance, or extending your visa, or getting your documents legalized, and all kinds of stuff. So that's all that we do in-house to help the students make an easier transition into studying in Germany. We do offer two support services for those that are coming to study in Germany. Number one, the academic pathway. The main focus here is for students or graduates who have finished high school and are interested in going to public or private university in Germany. The second pathway is the career pathway, and this has a very strong focus on those that are interested in the on-job training, or what we call the Ausbildung, those that are interested in practical vocational training. Particularly, we are very much interested in young boys and girls that are interested in pursuing nursing profession in Germany. Yeah. When I was contacted by Johannes a couple of days ago, to be honest, we are all trying now to come to grasp with the immense demand and interest in help. But I also told him that there are a lot more questions than answers at the moment. But what we suggest for anyone who is already here, you've been displaced from the Ukraine, you've been studying in your first or your fourth or your second semester, and you don't know where to go further. So the first thing I think for us is to help or to ask you to find out more about what are the humanitarian and the legal rights that enable you to stay here before you start any process or applying to any universities. How much time do you have remaining to stay here, and is that enough for you to do anything at all? So for that, I think there is a lot of information out there, though there is no conclusive information as where do I find the right information. I've put together some kind of links to help those students who might be interested to find out more on that, particularly if it is in the English language. So the second part of the suggestion, or my suggestion, I would suggest is for anyone who is interested in staying in Germany. If you are studying, for example, aeronautic engineering or medicine, to find a suitable program that either enables you to continue in that path that you are following, or if it is not possible, to consider something totally different. I understand, or I have spoken to a couple of students who are doing medicine, and after a couple of back and forth questions, I found out that maybe the grades or the academic qualification they used to get into medicine in the Ukraine is not going to be helpful for them to get into a medical degree in Germany. So now what would be the option, or what are the other options available? So in that case, we could have a couple of options of medical related programs that could be maybe interesting for them if they are interested in continuing their studies in Germany. Thirdly, once the interested person has found the right program, then I would suggest that the third and very most important thing is to find out the admission requirements for those universities. For our part, we do that because we do understand where the different academic school systems differ with Germany. But if it's any student here and you're looking forward to doing it yourself, I will be showing you where you can do that by yourself, simply going to the Uni Assist website, giving in your country of origin, and then seeing what are the requirements for admission in that country. But fourth, and also very critical, is the financial requirement. Now, of course, we understand that if someone is coming from a war zone, the last thing that you want to hear about is where do I get the money from? Because we don't know how much you left behind or how much you've spent to be where you are right now. But unfortunately, if you are going to study in Germany under normal circumstances, there are certain requirements or financial requirements that you do have to fulfill. First and foremost, if you're a self-financed person, you need to have a blocked bank account. And this is amount of money that not many students would probably be able to raise right now. And that will definitely be a point where Johannes or any other person will have to elaborate what are the support services, what can someone get in terms of support to be able to raise that. What if we get you a confirmation of the university, but the local alliance authorities say that you need to see the means of living. How are you going to live here? So how are you going to survive in Germany or in Berlin for the rest of your stay here? So I think that's a point that every participant or every applicant will have to make a plan on. And if there is any support in that case, I'll be very happy to share opinions or suggestions, but I'll leave that open to everyone. Now, I would like to briefly elaborate a little bit more about the academic pathways in Germany. For those that are maybe following us, you're coming from different countries, and you will understand that there are lots of differences. If you're coming from Nigeria, you do have the West Africa Senior Certificate. The same applies to participants who are coming from Ghana, If you're from Kenya, you probably have a Kenya certificate of secondary education. If you're from Uganda and following us, you probably have O and A levels or Cambridge for some, or IB. So there are so many different education certificates that you might have. Now the question is, what are the avenues? Which pathways could be there for me? There are different pathways. First of all, if you do have the language proficiency, which is required by most universities, you would need to have at least a B2 or a C1 German language. Most of the universities we're working with require C1 TELC or a TESDAF 4x4 result. Then if that does not help you at all in your situation now, then the best would be to apply for an English taught program, preferably in a public university, because that will be less costly, or you'd be probably paying little than nothing. Someone at the beginning has mentioned about private universities. I find this at the moment as a very viable idea, because they are less bureaucratic, and also the fact that most public universities intakes already for summer semester have already expired. That means only a few couple of private universities would be able to open their doors to students. Otherwise, one will have to wait until the winter semester. That will then bring in the question of the time. How much time am I allowed to stay here to apply to that? So I guess more other panelists will be giving us ideas on that, but just to help you kind of think through the whole process. Now, how is the eligibility to studying in Germany considered? As I said, most countries would be required to do a foundation year if you have 12 years of school, and that is quite a number of countries. A few exceptions, I would say if you're talking about Africa, probably Uganda or Tunisia or Cameroon or Senegal, a couple of countries will be exempted from the foundation year, but most of the applicants who are applying from high school in any country would be required to apply through the foundation year, do the Feststellungsprüfung or the assessment exam before they join their first semester of university in Germany. A few exceptions exist if one has done 12 years of high school plus 1 year of university. Then there might be some exceptions to avoid the foundation year, and that should be in the same subject of your previous studies. And if there is anyone who has already completed their bachelor's degree abroad in a full-time study and in a recognized university, then you would be able to, or you would be considered for admission into a master's degree in Germany. How to apply for that? I have put a link there. Initially, one has to go through this platform, check your requirements for the specific country requirements, check whether the grades are sufficient, whether the subjects that you did do qualify you to the subject that you want to study. It's in English and German, so that means anyone can use that link to be able to assess their eligibility to study in Germany. However, for those that might be interested or looking forward to our assistance, that's the little that we can do to help you at least to make sense of all this information that is out there. Yeah. Now, probably doesn't need to be mentioned, but if you're already here and you're interested in studying in Germany, what of the question would be, why should I study in Germany? Most of the panelists who are here will agree that Germany has a very strong quality academic degrees in Europe and comparable in the rest of the world. There are a lot of interdisciplinary study programs. Apart from the traditional mechanical engineering or civil engineering, one can do a lot of degrees that combine one or two several subjects. And this is very good for those maybe that were only studying one subject. Here you can combine a couple of other subjects. A lot of programs, especially if you are able to learn the German language, over 17,000 degree courses are provided at all the universities. So the only limitation, of course, would be if you're only looking for English taught programs, there are probably kind of limitations in as far as how much programs you can choose from, but still you would be able to find a number of very good degree courses. The cost of studying and the cost of living is very, very important to consider. As I mentioned, living expenses must be guaranteed, but beyond that, students can still pursue degrees at public universities with a very minimum contribution towards the semester. On average, should be about 250 or 300 euros, depending on which university. Unless if one wants to go to a private university, then you should be able to consider tuition fees per semester or around 11,000 euros per annum. Probably that's quite expensive for many, but I would highly suggest that you consider the public universities if you can, and in the English taught track, considering the amount of time that you have at the moment. Yeah, for anyone that is able to complete their degree process or degree programs in Germany, Germany offers a very good or prospective career opportunities for graduates. First of all, in the area of engineering, in the health sciences, there are a number of opportunities that could be available for you. And also considering that the German government gives you an automatic job search visa once you've completed your studies here. So that could be interesting for those that would be seeking staying back here. The low cost of living is very important, but obviously nothing to be compared to where you are probably, but also it varies from which cities, whether you're in Berlin or in Munich or in Frankfurt or in Hamburg, it might differ, but it's still affordable compared to most of the other study destinations. Yeah. I would like to emphasize that Germany is a very welcoming country. That could be confirmed by many of the panelists here. German universities have a very vibrant international community. Most of the universities have between 15 to 20% of their student population having a migrant background. So that is something that should also encourage you to consider if you have to stay here. And I find the quality of life, myself having been a foreign student here, I find that Germany offers a very good life-work balance as a student, and also the chance that you can access good healthcare and you're safe as a student. Obviously, many who are coming here, you're looking for safety. So I think Germany is a very safe country for you to be. Yeah. I will not go so much in details with this, but for those that might be interested, if you are interested in the vocational pathway, at the moment, I would highly recommend going for the health or the nursing course, because first of all, it's one of the professions that is highly sought in Germany. Besides Corona, Germany has always been the #1 place where they're looking for so many nurses. But the current situation also provides this profession to be interesting. And very important, it's also a profession that is considered as essential. So that means if you're applying for a visa, they will have to look at how essential is your degree or the course that you want to study for the German government. That's something that I could highly recommend. So most schools or most nursing schools would require B2 German language. And you would have, if you have this, you would qualify for the work visa. And the trainee or the on-job training programs are paid. You get an allowance, and that would cover the cost of living. And for most of the students, I think that will be very good for you to be able to say, at least I can finance my stay here. However, you need to learn German language up to B2. And most likely you might have to spend 6 to 7 months. If you're doing, for example, our language course, which is very intensive, that would mean that you have to guarantee that you get enough time on your visa or your stay permit to enable you to study this language. Otherwise, we also can do this for those who are still abroad online. That is something that I would highly recommend. From my side, that's all I could say. I would welcome all kinds of questions after the end when our other panelists have completed. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll be looking forward to answering those questions as they may come. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Stephen. I know that Anna needs to go in a few minutes. Anna, do you want to quickly jump in, or should we keep going and then?
I can quickly jump in and tell or address those who do not want to study medicine but business. If you have studied business and you want to go on with that, I think it's probably the subject where it's the easiest in Germany to study that in English, sorry. So you don't necessarily need German skills for that. So what I can say in general, at public universities, you will be a bit struggling to already get admitted this summer, because most programs are currently running. But if you think about going on with your business studies, the application deadlines for the winter semester are already near in some weeks. So if you have any questions on that, I will actually post probably an email address that you can reach. But business, I guess, is probably the easiest one for those who are here, because there are quite a few English-speaking bachelor programs available in that field.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks so much, Anna. And then I'm sure we'll get questions on this in the Q&A, but I think several others of us can also address those. So thanks so much for that overview. So maybe in the interest of time, I'll continue and say a few words to make a little more concrete what Stephen has already started to tell us about. And in particular, I'm going to walk you through the details of how you would go about applying for a bachelor's or a master's program in Germany. So hang on, so just briefly about myself, I'm a professor of economics at Stockholm University, and the reason I've organized this is because I started a nonprofit last year called Malengo, which helps Ugandan students apply for a bachelor's degree in Germany, and we help them with mentoring and funding. And because of that, I've spent a long time in the past year thinking about applications to German universities. And so what I was hoping to do here is to share what we learned in that process. And like I said, I'm going to focus on bachelor's degrees, and to a significant extent, it's going to be relatively similar to master's degrees. Unfortunately, in this part of the webinar, I won't have much for the PhD students in the audience and the medical students. And we'll have a medical doctor or a medical student joining us later who can say a little more on that. But in this part, I'm going to focus on bachelor's and master's applicants. So first, if you're interested in finding a course to study, here's a number of useful links. And I'm going to put these slides on a website, and we'll send around the link afterwards. And the recording of this webinar will also be available, so don't worry about taking notes. There's an official government portal called studyingermany.de that has a link to the listing of the courses. So there's a government website that lists all the bachelor's and master's programs in Germany. It's run by the DAAD, which is the German Academic Exchange Service. I want to recommend one other good website that lists all the bachelor's and master's programs. That's not an official government website. It's created by a company, so it's for profit in principle, but it's free to use, the search function. It's mygermanuniversity.com. And the advantage of that site is that you can filter by cost. So you can go on that website and find all the bachelor's programs that are free of charge. And you can also filter by language. So you could find, for example, all the bachelor's programs that are free and are taught in English. So there's a number of distinguishing features of both bachelor's and master's programs that I'll quickly narrate now. So there's some that have restricted admission and others that have open admission. Restricted admission means that you have to have good grades to get in, and often in those there's also a quota for non-EU students. And so those are harder to get into. Often that quota is 7%, so it's relatively low. The sort of less popular subjects are often open admission, and those are very attractive because that means as long as you have high school grades that are just passing grades, and you have a high school diploma that qualifies you for university entry in Germany, and I'll say later on what that means in detail, then you should get into those courses. Up to the limit, they have to admit you. So that's a really attractive set of courses to look for, the ones that have open admission. Another distinction is between courses with fees and those that are free. So Stephen already mentioned that many courses are free, and that's true for all public universities, with one small exception that I'll mention in a second. So at the public universities, even as a non-EU citizen, you only pay what's called a semester fee, which is basically local transport plus some administrative costs. And in the programs that we work with in Malengo, that fee ranges from somewhere around 60 to around 330 euros. So it's relatively low. The exception here is Baden-Württemberg, which is one of Germany's constituencies, one of the states. And there they have a 1,500 euro, I think, per year or per semester, Anna, right? Fee, exactly. But I learned from Anna, who teaches in one of those universities, that there's discussions about at least softening that in the present moment. And then there's private universities, and those charge fees, and those are often in the thousands of euros per semester. And so on the website that I recommended earlier, you can filter by cost. So depending on how much money you have available, you can let it show you only the courses that you can afford. And then a third distinguishing feature is that there are courses available that are taught exclusively in English. And so you don't need to know any German to register for those courses. So the Ugandan students that we work with, they come to Germany not knowing a word of German, and they learn it while they're there, but the courses, they don't even need to know German because those are taught in English. If you want to study a course that's taught in German, you need to know German at a relatively high level. So it's C1 is the level. You can Google what that means. And so for the medical students, if you want to study medicine in Germany, as far as I know, that's the only option you have. I'm not aware of English-speaking medical programs in Germany. You'd have to learn German to this level first, at least as far as I'm aware. Don't take my word for this because I'm not an expert on this. But like I said, there's a growing number of English-speaking bachelor's and master's programs. And so let me briefly summarize what I think is a very easy path to studying in Germany and a relatively cheap path. So if you go on this website and you filter for courses that have no admissions restriction, that are taught entirely in English and that have no tuition fees, you'll find about 80 or so bachelor's programs and over 500 master's programs. And so those, I think, are very attractive targets for you as you think about continuing your education in Germany. The bachelor's programs we've listed on the Malengo website, but you can also find them on this other website that I linked earlier. Okay, so then the next thing you need to figure out is whether you qualify to apply for those programs. And thankfully, that's centrally regulated in Germany. For a master's degree, you need the equivalent of a bachelor's degree, so that's relatively straightforward. I won't spend much time on that. For a bachelor's degree, you need what's called a university entrance qualification. So that's a high school diploma or some other qualification that qualifies you for university entry in Germany. And there's a database called ANABIN, which tells you whether you qualify for university entry given your previous study history. And a version of that database is accessible and easily searchable on the website of an organization called UniAssist that I've linked here. So I'll briefly show you how that works. You would go to that website and you can, sorry, this Google thing is, Zoom thing is getting in the way. So under tools, you can check whether your high school diploma qualifies you for university entry. So let's say, for example, you're from Nigeria. You can enter Nigeria. Let's say you have a higher certificate in education. It tells you that you qualify for direct subject restricted admission. So that's really good. If you're, let's say you're from Ghana, you have, let's say you have GCE at the advanced level and the ordinary level. And let's say you've studied for at least a year and you want to study a technical subject, you also have direct subject restricted admission and so on. So you can very easily check on this website whether your high school diploma qualifies you for university entry. There's generally 5 cases here. There's a few high school diplomas that don't qualify you for studying in Germany at all, and that's the exception. That's very rare. There are some high school diplomas that qualify you to study without restriction. I think for those of you who filled out the form that led you to this webinar, that's also a minority, actually. There's very few degrees from the Ukraine or from Ghana or Nigeria, for example, that qualify for unrestricted entry. It could be that your high school diploma allows you to qualify to study in Germany with restrictions. So for example, only specific subjects depending on the nature of your high school diploma or your previous education. So for example, the Nigeria Certificate of Education, like we just saw, or the Uganda certificate, advanced certificate of education, that those qualify you for subject restricted admission. Then the fourth possibility is that your high school diploma allows you to study in Germany if, in addition to having a high school diploma, you studied for 1, 2, or 3 years at a university with success. Usually that's 1 year. So if you have a high school diploma and you've studied for a year in Ukraine, let's say, for example, then in many cases you will qualify for subject restricted admission. So this is true, for example, for high school diplomas from Ukraine. I'm guessing that these are the standard high school diplomas. I'm not an expert on these. And for the Ghana General Certificate of Education. So if you have those plus 1 year at a university, then you qualify for subject restricted admission. And then finally, failing that, the remaining route that you have is to access a preparatory course called Studienkolleg and pass an exam that's called University Qualification Exam, or FSP for short. So I'll say a few more words about that on this slide. So FSP follows a 1 year preparatory course that you can take in a college somewhere around Germany. And there's 2 kinds of colleges that offer this. The ones that are offered by the government are free of charge. You only need living expenses, which I'll talk about later. But in order to get into those, you need to know German at a level B1. So that's less than C1, which you need to study outright in a German-speaking program, but you do need to know German at level B1. Then there's a few that are offered commercially. Those cost around 5,000 euros per year in tuition, some up to 10,000 euros, plus living expenses, but those are offered in English. Okay, so here's how the application works. Most universities use an organization called UniAssist, which is a nonprofit that's run by the universities. And you send your documents to this organization and you pay them a fee that's 75 euros for the first application and 30 for each additional application. And you send them your high school diploma and a proof of language proficiency. So that's the TOEFL test, for example. You need somewhere between 72 and 90 points on the TOEFL to get into these English-speaking programs. Typically for the fall semester, the deadline would be July 15th. And this is coming back to what Anna said earlier. Most of you are probably looking at the fall semester at this point. The summer semester is about to start and it's probably too late to find a spot in any of those programs. So July 15th for many programs is probably your deadline, but there might be programs that are earlier. So Anna's program, for example, is in a few weeks. Once you've submitted these documents, UniAssist checks if you're eligible. And then if you are, they forward your application to the universities that you've chosen. And then the universities would issue an official offer of admission. So if you've applied for a program that has unrestricted admission, you should in principle be admitted almost automatically unless the program is already full. So this is the case for many universities that they use this portal. There are some like Deggendorf and others that use their own university specific portals, but you can easily find out what they use on their websites. Okay, once you have a university admission, you apply for a student visa, and usually that happens in your home country. And I don't know what the situation is going to be this year for displaced Ukrainian citizens and for third country nationals, like those of you who are from Ghana and Nigeria. So I'm not an expert on this. You should keep following the news. I'm imagining that they'll come up with some solutions, certainly for the Ukrainian citizens, one hopes. So you submit, when you apply for the visa, the proof of the university admission, a police report usually, and proof of accommodation and health insurance. It also costs a fee, 75 euros. And then this is the big one, you need a proof of funds. So you need to sign up for a blocked bank account in Germany. There are commercial providers who offer this product. It costs a bit of money. I've linked one here. And into that account, you need to deposit a little over 10,000 euros. So that's unfortunately the big obstacle that Germany has. You need that in that account in order to prove to them that you can cover the first year living expenses. So the fixed initial cost I've tried to roughly summarize here. So you pay some for the TOEFL application fees, preparation and visa fees. You might have to pay for a flight and then the first year semester fees. and then the living expenses. So in total, you're looking probably at around 12,000 euros for the first year of a bachelor's degree. And then here's what you can expect in terms of running cost. The official figure that Germany says you need as a student per month is 860 euros to support yourself. De facto, many international students live on less than that. The average is about 650 euros that they get by on. But in order to get the visa, you need to prove to the government that you have 860 euros per month for the first year. So that's where these 10,000 euros come from. And so I've made a rough budget here that outlines how you might spend that money that I'm not going to go through in detail. You can read it on the slides on your own time. The good news is that even though you do need that large initial investment, you are allowed to work while you're studying. And this is true for about 2/3 of German university students. Many students finance their living expenses by working part-time jobs. And on a student visa, you can work 120 days full-time. And so at the current minimum wage, or at the minimum wage that's about to be implemented, that would give you just over 10,000 euros a year if you really work for the full 120 days. Now, that's a lot of working to do next to your studies. It might slow you down in your studies, but in principle, it would make it possible to get by and finance your studies while working. Another piece of good news is that, as far as I'm aware, and the panel should correct me here, that on-campus jobs aren't included in this. So if you work as a research assistant for a professor, for example, you often earn higher wages. And as far as I'm aware, it doesn't count against your 120 days. Okay, scholarships. Unfortunately, at the undergrad level, there isn't all that much available. If you're an extremely good student, there are some scholarship foundations. The big one is the National Academic Foundation called Studienstiftung, but they only admit about 0.25% of students. Then there's a number of scholarship foundations that are affiliated with political parties. And I've put a link here to those foundations. And again, you probably have to have relatively good academic grades to be eligible for those. This charity that I mentioned that I'm involved with, Malengo, we're looking into possibilities for finding funding for students in your situation. I have no idea yet if that's going to lead anywhere, but I'll reach out through the emails that you've provided in case we can do anything in that direction. At the graduate level, scholarships are much more numerous. Germany is really interested in getting master's students into the country and PhD students. And there's a comprehensive database provided by the German Academic Exchange Service, DAAD, that I've linked here. So if you're looking at a master's program, look at that database. That's a pretty good resource. So I'll stop here. I want to make two quick additions. Friends of mine in Stockholm have offered to help with accommodation there. And another friend in Cambridge in the US has offered with accommodation there. And that particular setting would be of special interest to very good PhD students or advanced researchers. So if you're interested in those two possibilities, send me an email and explain, we've had many thousands of responses. You'd have to make a case why this would be particularly appropriate for you. Why would it make sense for you to go to these places? So I'll stop here. Let me say a few words about staying in touch. So as I mentioned, we'll put the slide deck on a website. The address is here. It's not up yet, but we'll put it there after this seminar, and we'll make the video available as well. And I'll reach out to you by email if we learn anything new, either from the universities that we've been in touch with who are looking into possibilities of creating spots for you or regarding funding. So I'll stop here. I'm happy to take questions, but I think we'll do that at the end when we've gone through all the speakers that we have. And what I'd now like to do, Felix, how long can you stay? Are you basically free now? Or
I think I can stay as long as I'm needed.
Okay, fantastic.
No, I'm basically free, yeah.
Okay, great. Then, but Magdalene, I think, who has to go? I think Magdalene, right? I think Magdalene froze. No, now we can see.
Yeah, all right. I'll have to leave in a little bit, so maybe I can just say a few words that sometimes it might make sense to look into private universities. So I'm making the case for private universities if there is a way for funding. I'm at a small private university. I'll post the link in a second. And we would be, technically we don't admit for summer, but we do have 2 English-speaking master's programs in business, politics, philosophy, and economics, where we could make exceptions for the summer term under certain conditions. So if you're interested in really starting relatively soon, you would have to reach out quite quickly. Also, there are different, for some private universities, there are different financing options. So you wouldn't have to, at our university, you wouldn't have to pay anything until you've worked for some time, like for a couple of years, and with a certain income. So just sometimes it might make sense to look into those as well, and don't disregard them right away if they cost you a fee. We also offer medicine, but it's in German as far as I know. So but if you're interested in continuing in German, might also be something to look into. Right. I think, with respect to general comments, that would be it. I have answered a couple of questions already in the Q&A. The main problem, I guess, is the situation is very dynamic right now, right? So nobody really knows what the regulations and the rules are going to be. And my recommendation for process would be, because the questions have been piling up that go in the direction, what am I supposed to do now? Look at the websites that Johannes linked with different study programs. And if you find study programs that are very interesting for you, that you think might fit, you should reach out to those, right? You should just check, okay, what are the requirements for these particular study programs, and reach out to the people that are responsible for those study programs.
Great, thank you so much, Magdalene. So next, I would propose we go to Klara, who can say a few words about how PhD students might go about transferring to Germany. So I know that there's a number of PhD students who've signed up. So maybe Klara, if you want to say a few words about that.
Sure, happy to help. So yes, I'm a PhD student in development economics at Witten-Herdecke University. And for those who want to continue or even start their PhD studies at a German university, basically, I think it would be helpful to first check public resources. And a valid first step would be to check the AAD website as well, because it also contains it from the German Academic Exchange Service, because it kind of it contains all the information that international students would need to obtain for making sure that they find the right PhD track for them. So because they're in Germany, there are different ways to pursue your PhD at universities, both on public and on private universities. So you could either sign up for an individual doctoral studies, or you could enroll in a structured PhD program. And once you check this website of the German Academic Exchange Service, it would give you access to a database where you will find the different PhD positions and the different universities in Germany. And also it contains further information on potential access restrictions depending on the respective subject you want to do your research in. So once you have kind of identified the PhD program that is of interest for you via this public resources, I would recommend establishing direct contact to the universities. So just check the website of the university you want to study at. So regardless of any access restrictions, I would recommend, like as a very central next step, to getting in touch with the international office of the university you are interested in, because they are the people who usually take care of international applicants and provide you with international guidance. For instance, when it comes to like enrollment and language requirements and the documents that you that you are required to present in order to be admitted. So this is the first thing, that the international office. And at the international office, you could also ask for the doctorate or the study regulations that are in place. In most cases, I assume you would find an English translation of the respective regulations as a PDF on the university's website. So these regulations, they are university specific, so to say. And this document usually includes further information on the enrollment process itself, but also on the specific requirements that you would have to meet in order to enroll. And the documents that you would have to hand in at which point in time, for instance. So really like this university specific information. And the other thing is like really the most hands-on approach. For instance, especially if you want to pursue your doctoral studies individually, so not in a structured PhD program, I would recommend to get in touch or to try to get in touch with a professor as quickly as possible, because like at most universities on the websites you will find lists on the professors and the chairs they hold for and their emails, so you could ask them to just send them an email, just state your situation, and that you want to join the university. You could include information on the field of research you are working in, and the type of doctorate degree that you want to pursue or that you are already pursuing. And you could also ask for the specificities that you have to consider, like on your very individual path. For instance, if there are any deadlines that apply to your case, or if it is possible for you to even join in an ongoing semester. So and just ask for further assistance on, like for you specifically, so that you will also get the right academic guidance for you to pursue your academic project. Yes, and in case any of you has questions, I think we will share our emails later on. So feel free to also contact me, so I try my best to connect you to the right person at Witten-Herdecke University in my case. But also I could also send you the links to the website that I was referring to. But I think the DAAD website was also included in Johannes' presentation. So it's basically the same central resource. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Klara. And then finally, we have Felix Dorfner here, who's a medical student. And so Felix, if you could say a few words about studying medicine and maybe also related fields in Germany, that would be great. And I think one big question is are there English taught courses available, and if not, where might people find those?
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. So for medicine, veterinary medicine, pharmacy studies, and dentistry, the application process in Germany is sort of different to other groups of study. It is for German and EU citizens handled through one centralized website where you submit your application and are then assigned a university you can go to. For non-EU the process is a lot more complicated, unfortunately. So what I found is that every university handles it differently. Some universities use the service Johannes mentioned before, the UniAssist website, so you can apply through that. Other universities have their own way of processing international non-EU applicants. So unfortunately, it's not possible to study medicine or like normal human medicine, at least in Germany, in English. I think the only university that offers it is a private university in Hamburg, which obviously has tuition fees then. The same is true for Austria. Austria has a pretty similar process for applying to medical schools than Germany does, but it's also always taught in German.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the language, so almost all universities require a German level of C1. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to be pretty much fluent in German.
Okay.
To study.
Can you say anything, Felix, about like what might the tuition fees at that? There's only one private university, you said. Like what would tuition fees look like there roughly?
I don't know exactly what that one has, but most of the private universities are around the like 8,000 to 10,000 euros per year.
Right. And
so,
are you aware of possibilities in like Hungary, Czech Republic, and so on?
So I know about Hungary. I think there's a few universities there that offer medicine in English.
In English.
So Hungary has like 3 languages. There's like Hungarian universities that offer medicine in German, in Hungarian, and in English. Hungarian universities also have tuition fees, though, pretty similar to the tuition fees of private universities in Germany.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Okay.
Great. Thank you so much.
What might be a good possibility for the interim is doing scientific work. So if you're English speaking, doing scientific work at medical schools is pretty easy and possible if you only know English. So you don't have to speak German for that. And maybe that is like a good alternative for a year as a bridge or a gap to continuing your studies. And I saw a question in the chat about studying nursing. In between, nursing is becoming a nurse is done through an apprenticeship in Germany, so not through medical schools. That might be easier to get into a nursing program, though, because Germany has a nursing shortage or nurses shortage. So for that, you just have to contact individual hospitals. So every hospital offers apprenticeships for becoming a nurse.
And do you know if what the language requirements are there? Are there official language requirements, or is that sort of on a case-by-case basis?
I think it's on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
But as far as I know, lower probably than for medical school. So I think having a solid B level in German would probably be sufficient. And
presumably that wouldn't have the same visa requirements as studying. I imagine.
No, it's treated differently as studying.
Yeah. And do you know if the financial situation there, like, do you get paid already while you're doing that training, or?
Yeah, you get paid, and it's about, in the first year, it's about 1,000 euros per month.
Yeah.
So you can probably definitely get by from that wage.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Felix. This is super helpful. So this is all the presentations we had. We can turn to the questions now. Before we do that, I see a bunch of questions about this form that we sent around. So I just want to say a few words about that. That form is for us to be able to communicate with universities about students who might be appropriate for them. And so we'll treat your information confidentially. We won't pass on identifiable information to the universities, but we'll tell the universities that are interested who's in the form. And then we might put, if a university says, oh, we have room for a number of students, then we'll put them in touch with you. And so I would suggest that we keep the questions about the form to a minimum, and answer sort of substantive questions about studying. So if anyone sees a question that you can answer, please feel free, anyone on the panel. So I think medical we've addressed. So there's a number of you who are asking for whether you can study specific subjects at the bachelor and master level. And the answer there is that you should go to that website that I recommended and see if there are courses available that correspond to your interests, bachelor's or master's courses. So you can search there. Let's see what's coming in. So yes, if you study German, you can apply to study medicine here, but you have to reach level C1, which is relatively high. Felix, do you know anything about doctors who've already finished and who are like doing residency, for example, in Ukraine? Is there a way of getting those degrees recognized in Germany?
Yes, there is. So I think a great website for checking that is ANABIN, which is ANABIN.
We've talked about that. Okay, so that's also good for
at the hospital I'm currently working at. There are a lot of international doctors who are from countries like Romania and Poland. So that definitely works.
Okay, that's really good.
Yeah, a good trick for that maybe is applying in more rural areas.
Right.
That greatly enhances the chances of success.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Felix, can you maybe send me the link to that university that offers medicine in English? Then I can put that on the slides, ideally by email, because I won't see it in the chat here because there's so many messages.
Okay,
that'd be great. Oh, right. Someone asked whether that initial payment of 10,000 euros stays in that blocked account, and the answer is no. So you pay that into the account, and then it comes back out in increments of 861 euros every month. So you pay it in, you get your visa, you arrive in Germany, and then you get 861 euros per month for the first year from that blocked account that you can live from. And then usually you get your residence permit for 2 years or a year in some cases. And then when it's time to renew the residence permit, you have to prove again that you have enough funds to subsist on. And that could either be that you put up another 10,000 euros or that you convince the authorities that you have enough to live on. So for example, that you have a job at university or outside of university. So it gets somewhat easier once you're in the country. You don't need to forcibly put up that money. There are other ways of convincing them that you can support yourself. And someone asked whether that would be reduced because of the situation in the Ukraine. I don't know that. I would really hope that they would do away with that entirely, but that would be a decision at a very high level, and I don't know what's going to happen there. How long does it take to learn German to level C1? Stephen, do you know anything about that? Is a year enough?
Yeah, it depends from school to school. Our German language classes are very intensive, 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. So in 9 months, it's quite possible that students will be able to complete C1 level.
Mm-hmm. From zero. From zero to C1. Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. Someone's asking, can you go directly to the universities and listen to courses? I'm pretty sure that that's possible, certainly in the 3 months that you're here. And what I would do there, I think there's two possibilities there. One is, if you're interested in a specific course, I would just email the professor. I think professors are generally very willing to help, and like on a small scale, they have latitude to allow things like that. So that's one approach. Then I know that some universities are looking into opening up their exchange programs for displaced students. So Technical University Dresden is one of those universities that's trying to do that. Also the university in Berlin that Stephanie was from. And so that's another possibility, emailing the universities to see if they have like openings in their exchange programs. But the more promising, I think, is to just email professors directly. Someone is asking about the
Johannes?
details of, yes.
I just wanted to add to that. For those who want to just join in and listen in, I put the keyword, you could just put NIM or the Gasthören as guest student. You can go and just look for the university in your nearby location, and you could ask particularly for that university if there is a possibility to just become just a guest student, just to sit and listen in. Though you may not have a lot of attention from your professor, but you can still follow the classes, provided that it's in a language that you understand.
Yeah. So on the questions about specific courses of study, please do use the resources that we recommended. Don't keep asking about, can we study engineering? Can we study business? Look at the website and search for the courses. We should answer more general questions here, not questions about specific courses. Does anybody know anything about language courses? Stephen, can you say anything about what you need in order to come to Germany for a language course? Do you also need a blocked bank account and 10,000 euros?
Yes, sure. For those who are coming to Germany with language courses, then you apply for a study preparation visa. This should have maximum 2 years, and within these 2 years, you can finish the language course as well as the foundation year for those who need to go for Studienkolleg, and that will be the requirement for you to get into university. So the block bank account is still required for the first year at least.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Are there nursing programs in English? I'm guessing not, Felix.
So the way nursing programs work is that they're sort of like dual or combined. You work in the hospital and you go to school part-time. So I don't think there are any offered in English, because you need to be able to speak German to the patients at the hospital.
Yeah.
And then I could probably add to that what Felix was saying. It's not possible to do nursing in English because you're going to be taking care of mostly German patients or old people. So I believe that most of them won't be able to understand you. So you need to be able to communicate to them and them to communicate to you. That's why the German language will be very important. Yeah. But for those that are interested in that particularly, so if you're willing to learn the language, then at least they should get in touch with me and then see how we can support it.
Yeah. Let's see.
Someone is asking about blocked account if you have a relative living in Germany. I think there is a possibility that that person will sign as a guarantor that you would take care of your living expenses. So in that case, the blocked bank account would not be required.
Yeah, right. Someone's asking whether DAAD does have scholarships for third country citizens, and yes, they do. They have quite a lot of scholarships, even for non-EU citizens, but it's mostly, or I think exclusively at the master's level and PhD level. So not at the bachelor's level, but above. So At the bachelor's level, I think your best bet are these free courses that I talked about that you can find if you go to mygermanuniversity.com. But those you would probably have to fund yourself unless you get one of these scholarships from these foundations that I mentioned, but those you can only apply for once you're studying in most cases. For the master's level, you do have these scholarships available, these DIAD scholarships. All the links are going to be in the slides, and I'll email you, or you can go to the malengo.org to find that after this webinar.
Johannes, I think there was a very common question I found that many students were interested in knowing, can I transfer my credits to a German university? I found the question coming quite often. So I think the first step would be to secure the admission to any university of your choice or the program of your choice, because most universities do not, or they, if you are studying in the EU, there is this chance to get your credits from one university to the other. But I'm not so sure about the university in Ukraine if you can transfer your credits. But in most cases, if you get admitted in the first semester, there is enough time to apply for accredited. They could accredit your subjects if they are considered relevant to your current studies. So initially, I think first secure the admission and then apply for consideration to the academic board or your faculty if those subjects that you have done already in Ukraine could be considered so that you get maybe less workload or so.
Mm-hmm. And Stephen, someone asked, what's a good place to do a language course? Do the universities offer those, and how much do they cost? Are they free?
So there are quite a number of options. If you just say learn German wherever you are, maybe in Berlin, I could say we are probably the best place to learn German. But there are quite a number of, there is Goethe Institute. There, for those that are looking for very affordable options, there is the Volkshochschule, which quite subsidized by the states. I cannot tell you how much you should go for, it depends on the individual budget, but the most important aspect is always to look at how much time do I have. If I go for a language class, which only offers 2 hours a week, how long will it take you to complete B2? Do you have enough time until you apply to university or the program of your choice? So those are some of the factors that I think that you should consider, but the financial part is obviously very important.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, most universities also do provide German classes once you're already enrolled. And this should be should be there just to help you keep improving your skills. But for most universities, having the minimum like B2 or C1, you need to have that before they take you in.
Yeah. Some people are asking about the they have 3 months now to stay in Germany, and the question is what happens after that. And the answer is I don't think so. I certainly don't know, and I'm not sure that there is official guidance on this. For Ukrainian citizens, as I understand, there's going to be a possibility to stay longer, and I imagine that would have to involve being able to study in some capacity, but I don't think there's official word on how that would work in terms of the visa, whether you could just stay and study or you would have to get a separate visa, and if yes, where you would get that, and for whether you would have to get that at an embassy outside of Germany or you could get it within Germany. Stephen, I don't think we know anything about that, do we?
Not really. There's a lot of information. It's a very dynamic situation, but my practical advice to anyone who is still here, if you have 3 months, then make the best of that time. Make sure that at least enroll in a school or in a language school or if you find a university that is able to take you in, get an application or at least apply, show them that you're doing something practical. The most important aspect of the German authorities is always they need to find a legal status. In which category should they put you if you don't have any specific status? So that means you should prove to them that either I have taken effort to apply to a university, they have promised me an admission in the winter intake, or I'm taking a German language course. I have an offer from a school for this particular program. So I think it should be two ways. Try to find a reason to be considered as a legitimate candidate for their visa. So the 3 months can go so fast.
Mm. Yeah, and I think for third country nationals, it's currently not clear how they would get visas. Presumably at the moment, they would have to go back to their home countries and apply from there, if I'm understanding correctly. I don't think there's currently a solution to do that in a simpler way, but maybe that might change in the next couple of months.
But still, even then, I would say if you apply and you get an admission, say from a university, and you have to return to your country and apply, come back legally, I would still find it very helpful, because the time while you're here, you can do so much, and then prepare your paperwork and then go back, apply, and then come again. So
yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's see what else we have. Social welfare, I don't know anything about. I think people are asking questions in the chat, not in the Q&A section. So if you can ask questions in the Q&A, I think that would be helpful, because then we can organize them better.
someone is asking if you could provide the link to the business administration course.
Yeah, so all the questions about specific courses, you should go to the website that I recommended, mygermanuniversity.com or studyingermany.de, and look for courses there. That's the place to find the courses.
What are the consequences for applying for asylum?
Yeah, that's not, I don't have expertise on that. Okay, so someone's asking if you have your transcript in Ukrainian universities. I don't exactly know what that means, but I imagine that if you have a copy or a picture, you can probably get that translated and submitted for UniAssist for your application. Many universities accept electronic submission of documents. And so if you have scans or pictures, then in many cases that'll be fine. If you actually don't have the physical, like if you don't have the transcripts, that might be tricky. I think in many cases, as long as you have the diploma, in some cases it might be okay if you have the diploma. So sometimes for university admission, you need certain grades in certain subjects, and then it would be important that they can check your grades. Sometimes it's enough to just have the diploma. And in those cases, if you have a picture of that or the original, then that might be okay.
I think, Johannes, the problem is that quite a number of students were not able to collect or to run with all the academic documents while fleeing.
Right.
So in that case, you might have maybe then to find any proof or to show any proof that you really, that you are in the fourth semester or that you are legally in the country. Any proof that shows that you are doing something, I guess that would be helpful. If not, then use the basic academic documents that led you to Ukraine, say, for example, from your home country. If you're, say, from Nigeria, then use the West Africa Senior Certificate. There is a scratch card which you can provide for the authorities to verify that you at least completed your high school. In some other countries, the Ministry of Education also would provide different confirmations, official confirmation that you completed your bachelor's or your high school. At least for that, the universities here would believe you.
Yeah.
Someone is asking if student colleague is compulsory, if the desired course is taught in English.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. Depends on the country where you're coming from. As I said, in most countries, if the participant who asked this question, if you're from Nigeria or from Ghana or someone who's from Gambia or from most of the West African countries, then you need to do foundation year. So whether it's going to be in English or German, you need to do foundation year because it's the bridge that you need to get the right accreditation, which is the equivalence of the German Abitur for you to be enrolled at a German university. So the English taught foundation years obviously are going to cost money. If you go to the German, the German track student colleague, most of them are free, but the requirement at least is that you have B2 as the minimum to enter that. Most cases also B1 would have. Martin Gabriel asked if the German resident offering sponsorship letters would need to have 10,000 euros physically. Not necessarily, but they should show that they have enough means to take on another person. And if they have members of families also taken care of, there is a certain threshold income that they need to show that would be considered. I guess it's around 2,500. They should be able to earn a certain amount to guarantee that they could take you on, but they don't need to have 10,000 euros on their account for that.
Felix, someone's asking if you can say more about the scientific work that you had talked about without knowing German.
So generally, depending on how far you are into your medical studies. If you have already finished your medical degree, it would, for example, be possible to pursue a doctorate in German. And for that, for all the fields that are only scientific, like biomedical studies, physiology, it's possible to do that in English. And because all of the lab groups are speaking English and have a lot of international researchers. So practically how to go about that would be to just contact universities, or even better, individual professors or research groups individually that you would like to work for. So the best resource for that is probably maybe looking for papers that they published, or just searching through the university's website to find a lab group you would like to work for and contact them individually.
Mm-hmm. Someone is asking, what are the educational requirements to enter language courses? Stephen, do you know anything about that?
Education requirements as in? You don't
like
need
high
to
school
have,
degree, for example.
Okay, so again, it comes down to where you're from. If you're from Nigeria, you have the West Africa Senior Certificate, which is pretty much used by the countries.
So it's the same as for studying? It's the same as for university entry?
Yeah, so you have first the high school or Cambridge, IB, whichever you have. Thus, you don't have any language proficiency. You don't need to know German language to apply for a German language course. So,
no, but if you're wanting to take a German language course in Germany,
yes,
are the admission criteria for those language courses the same as for universities in terms of the high school diploma. So for example, it is the same.
Yes.
It is the same. Got it. Okay. Do any of those language courses exist online? Someone's asking.
Yep. Pretty much most of them. Like I would say 70 or 80% of our current students are all taking classes online. They're in different countries, in Nigeria, in Kenya, in Uganda, in Ecuador, wherever. So it doesn't really limit. Wherever you are, you can take the classes, as long as you provide the time, at least 5 days a week. We have classes always in the mornings and the afternoon, depending on the time zones of the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the question, do you have to go back to your country of origin after you get admission? I don't think we know that at the moment. Like for third country nationals, I think at the moment that's the process, but it's a little up in the air what's going to happen over the next 3 months, if they're going to create any sort of easier pathway for third country nationals. And for Ukrainians, I imagine they must be working on some solution.
Yeah, someone with 2IEC, you can apply, it's okay.
Someone's asking, is the foundation year mandatory for bachelor's and master's degrees or only bachelor's? It's not mandatory for any degree. If your university, if your high school diploma or your previous education qualifies you for university entry in Germany, then you don't need a bachelor's diploma. And you would find that out in this ANA-BIN database that I talked about in my presentation. And you'll find the link to that on the slide deck that I'm going to post.
Yeah, NECO results are also accepted for those that are asking. So if one is studying medicine in Ukraine, can you do nursing? Yes, you can. But as I said, German language will be very important. I think Felix has already emphasized that there is no chance, almost no chance of studying medicine in English here. There is only one university, probably in Hamburg, which offers English taught medical degree courses, and it's a private university.
So for medicine, it might be a good idea to look into Hungary, for example, which might have English-speaking programs and probably also cheaper than that university in Hamburg, I'm guessing.
Or even Poland.
Or Poland, yeah. Mm-hmm. Someone's asking, what are the websites for those medical courses? Maybe, Felix, we can work together to collect some links and then we can add those to the slide deck.
I could send you also a link to that, about 35 of those universities.
On the questions about transfers, I guess we've touched on this. So if you're at a bachelor's level and you're wanting to transfer, I think the best way to think about it is to think about applying from scratch. And then once you're there, trying to get some of your previous courses recognized. I think that's much easier than doing it beforehand. I would be surprised if universities would do that kind of thing before admission. But once you have been admitted, I think that would be a good time to have that conversation. Still some questions about specific subjects. Please go to that website, mygermanuniversity.com, and there you'll find the information about what courses are available at the bachelor's and master's level.
So someone said there's an HND from Nigeria that could get you directly into university if that university in Nigeria was recognized. There is a certain status in ANABIN which you need to look out to, but it's not automatic that you could be accepted with HND. So most likely it might be a case-by-case basis decided on by the university where you're applying.
Someone's asking, what's the foundation year about? Stephen, can you say something about that?
Sure. So the foundation year is just meant to give you the exact equivalence of the German high school or the German Abitur. It has 4 streams. You could go into the engineering or technical stream if you're into engineering or IT. For those that are interested in medicine subjects or medical related, they will have to do M course, which is for medicine. And for those that have interest in business related subjects, there is the business track. And for someone who is into politics or social sciences, then there is the humanities track. So it's 1 year, and after completion of this, you should be able to get the exact qualification that will grant you admission into a public or private university in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
But this is only for those who have mainly 12 years of school. If you have 12 plus 1, or if you had 13 years of school, as in some countries, if you had IB and you meet the certain requirement, then you don't need foundation year.
Mm-hmm. Someone says, is it possible to elaborate on guest student status? I don't know much about that myself. I don't know if Stephen or Felix, you know more. Like this would be Gasthörer.
Yes, sir. So this is usually provided for students who are planning to change universities from one university to the other and you want to try it. I don't know so much when it comes to another, coming from a different country, but we have put a link down there. If you just look for a university where you want to try, just ask the professor or the faculty or the international office, what are the requirements to take part in the guest lectures. So all you need is to go sit down and listen in. You might not be able to contribute much or submit courseworks, but at least most universities would allow you to sit into the lecture halls and listen in or take notes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Someone's asking, do you need to study up to level C1 in your home country before you can apply to study medicine in Germany? And I think the answer is no. You could also do the language course in Germany, which is probably a better idea because then you'd learn it better than you could abroad.
Yeah, that's correct.
If you get admitted to medicine, do you get admitted to the higher semesters? Yeah, if I'm guessing there's like progress checks along the way that you need to pass.
So for medicine, I actually do not know about the progress checks or the Staatsexamen, as they're called in German.
The state exam is the final thing, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. So there's like 3 of those, one after the second year, one after the 5th year, and one after the final year. And I don't know what the processes are if German universities recognize the steps in between. So if you finished your 2nd year abroad, if you can continue on into your 3rd year in Germany. So I think that's on a case-to-case basis and also heavily depends on the country you're coming from.
Yeah. And Felix, someone's asking if someone already graduated in medicine, can they do residency here? And you were saying earlier that yes, they can.
Yeah, they can.
Yeah.
So the process for that is then again applying to individual hospitals.
Yeah.
Those hospitals do not have to be associated with a university.
Yeah. Yeah, Michelle is asking if you have to get the student visa from your home country. And I think for third country nationals, that's currently the case. I don't think there has been any guidance that would deviate from that.
No.
Cost of language course came up again. Stephen, maybe you want to repeat that?
So the cost of language course, as I said, varies from provider to provider. On average, should be able to pay for entire German language from 0 to C1, somewhere within the range of 7,000 even to 10,000 euros, depending on the school. Our program costs roughly about 7,500, but if one wants to go for the guaranteed, that you can even repeat as many times as possible, could go up to about 8,997, so about 9,000 euros. So this is from 0 to C1 with all the language exams, with all the materials that you would need, with the academic guidance and admission support and so on.
Someone's asking, does the 10,000 euro blocked account apply to all universities, or is there a particular one? And I think the answer is that it applies. This is a visa requirement, not a university requirement, something that the government wants to see that you can support yourself before issuing the visa. And so, yes, that would apply to all courses.
So someone is asking, what's the process for applying to language visas? I think it's not language visa, because you could come on a visitor's visa, which is about 90 days, and learn language. But if you want to learn German language preparing for university, then you apply for the study preparation visa. For that, you need to have the blocked bank account guaranteed, and you need to have the conditional offer of a university, or at least a university or uni assist letter, which shows that you've applied to a university and the requirement is that you pass the language. So those are the main requirements, plus of course insurance and so
on. Do you need to pay for the nursing programs? No, as my understanding, you get paid. Are there any programs providing accommodation? I don't think that's something we can answer here. I guess the universities will often be helpful in finding accommodation while you're studying. So they often have dorms available, or they can link you up with local landlords. So that's generally, once you're enrolled in a university or once you have an admission, an acceptance, housing is generally solvable, especially in the countryside. In the big cities, it might be harder. Is it possible to do an internship as a medical student during these 3 months while applying for study preparation visa? Felix, do you know about internships?
Yes, that should be possible. For the internship to make sense, you probably need some level of German, though, because everything in the hospital is in German. So, but yeah. You could also, again, then just apply to an individual hospital or also a university to get an internship there. So the process for that is not at all standardized. Yeah, but it's definitely possible, but probably makes more sense if you have at least some knowledge of German.
Yeah. Felix, someone's asking, what's the name of that university in Hamburg that offers medicine in English? Do you happen to know that?
The university is called Universitätsmedizin Neumarkt, Campus Hamburg. I can post the link into the chat. Yeah. So I do not know anything about the university. I just found that they're the only one that offers medicine in English.
Okay, I think the questions are getting fewer, so maybe we can move towards wrapping up. I think many of the questions that are being posted now, we've answered elsewhere in the conversation. And so if you feel like your question hasn't been answered, apologies for that. Maybe you can re-listen to the video once we share it. We'll put it up on malengo.org. That's the website where the video will be shared. I'm going to type that in the chat. And so I think you'll find the
how
answers.
to apply for. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I just read someone was asking how to apply for language course and get permanent residence. So I think you can apply for language course, but doesn't grant you permanent residence initially. But if you need more information about language courses, then I've already shared my email address there, so you can feel free to contact us.
Yeah. Okay, great. So maybe we'll wrap up here. Again, I imagine that you'll find answers to some of the questions that are being asked now in the video if you rewatch it, and we'll post the link, the slides of the presentation as well, and some of the links that we've discussed just now. And those of you who signed up through the Google form will keep you updated on any developments regarding opportunities at universities. If any universities tell us that they have open slots, we'll pass that on to you. And if we find out anything about funding, we'll let you know about that as well. I want to say that I'm getting a lot of emails, so I apologize if I can't reply to everybody. I'm doing my best, but I probably won't get around to being able to write to everyone. So thanks for bearing with us. And thanks so much to Stephen and to Felix for participating, and to the other participants on the panel who've left now. And many, many thanks for John also for organizing this at NYU and hosting it. John, thank you so much for making that possible.
Thanks for organizing this, Johannes.
Okay,
Thanks,
great.
Johannes.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks
All the
all
best
that-
to all the students. We're feeling for you, and we wish you all the very best. Okay, bye-bye.